Okay, so I'm gonna be talking about the recent news that the U.S. wants to make Canada the 51st state. Now, I don't know how truthful this news is, but considering that it is truthful, although I'm not a prime minister, I'm not a president, I do have a certain level of power as kind of like this king or something. I don't know, but I do have a certain amount of power, and I just want to give my mind and speak my mind about this event. Okay. So I feel like, first of all, it's very obvious why Canada doesn't want to be the 51st state. A lot of it is pride as a country. Every time we go to competitions, for instance, in badminton or in the Olympics, Canada has always been, a country representing itself. Um, there's a sense of national pride, right? And this is a country we're talking about, right? It's not a state. If it's a state, it just becomes part of US. So when you have competitions, it just becomes part of the USA. And I think I want to just clear up exactly what Trump is doing in terms of this um, joining of Canada and the US. Because I don't know if everyone knows what the consequences, what the point of it is. The point is, from a US perspective, the Canada represents a huge resource. And if you take it over, right? If you take over Canada, you will gain resources because you no longer have to sell across borders, right? If I'm selling across borders, it's going to cost more than if it comes from my own country. Tariffs, always there. Extra costs on top of just the base cost from selling to your own country. For instance, if I wanted to buy something from Canada, it's cheaper most of the time than if I buy something from USA. And if the US wants to buy something from Canada, no, sorry. If the US wants to buy something from Canada, it's more expensive than if the US wants to buy something from the US. Similarly, if Canada wants to buy something from the US, it's more expensive than if Canada wants to buy something from Canada. This separation of the states, the separation of the countries, causes this friction. But the thing is, obviously, this makes total sense to the US to do this. This is a attack that makes total sense to the USA because they have nothing to lose. They're strong. They think they can push the Canadians to a point that they're gonna quit. They're confident about it. So obviously, there's no strategic flaw um, in what the U.S. is doing, and obviously, it all depends on what Canadians can do. Now, I suggest Canadians get allies right now because this whole thing with the USA, it looks bad. That's the one reason US shouldn't do it, is because it looks bad. It looks bad. They're trying to steal Canada from Canada. They're trying to force it with tariffs and stuff like that. It looks bad. So I don't want. I personally don't want this to look like it's gonna be a war. Because Canada needs allies. And the problem for the rest of the world is that USA, okay, the US is the strongest country in the world right now. Perhaps um only of the same magnitude as China. China is the only country, maybe Russia, but mostly China is the only country that can rival US, as you can see in Olympics, as you can see in just how much manpower they have. If US brings Canada over, then they are the single most powerful country in the entire world. China cannot catch up to them, if my understanding of things is correct. Of course, there might be some type of weird thing where it's like, okay, the information that I'm being given is not technically, absolute information. I'm missing some stuff, but that's what I think. So does it make sense for Trump to attempt to make the Canada into a 51st state? Of course it does. It makes perfect sense from an American standpoint. Is this something that is very dictator-like? Of course it is. Is it something that the Canadians are not gonna like? Of course it is. And you have to keep in mind that, if ever Canada was to join the U.S., there's gonna be more votes against Donald Trump. There's gonna be more votes for perhaps a Canadian president. So there's not lots of conflict and uncertainty right now. But from the point of view of China, France, all these different countries, giving USA that much power is a bad idea. They will become the most powerful country in the world. Okay, from what I know. So, to the world, I would suggest you help out Canada, not because I'm Canadian, but because for you, alright? Eventually, they're gonna try to take over you. Try to take over France, with the most power, they're gonna try to take over other states as well, other countries as well. And then you can never stop them. They can make terrorists against China, terrorists against France, terrorists against Brazil. They are not stopping. They are not going to stop. It starts now, but it ends never. It's just a control thing. It's a desire to be in control, a desire for power. That is the only reason. Because if it was simply a desire to make the world better, a desire to help people out, they wouldn't be making these tariffs that hurt Canadians and Americans at the same time. You get what I'm saying? They are hurting Canadians and they're hurting USA. They're not doing this to help anybody. Nobody is getting helped. We're both suffering on both sides of the border because of the decision of an idiot who thinks he's not an idiot. I'm saying that because he's just, a power-hungry dictator. The Hitler of 2025. He is the one who came up with, and his whatever people is the one who came up with this stuff. Because they want power. They want to create Canada and US together, creating this super massive thing that is going to take over the rest of the world. You hear me? Feel me? So, if in the end, if you say, oh yeah, he's trying to do that, we should just do that. The whole point of different countries existing is that you have different people who speak different volumes. They speak different things. It's because you have different cultures. Right? China has a culture, Brazil has a culture, Mexico has a culture, France has a culture, Canada has a culture. We have a lot of indigenous in Canada, so everything. And it does not make sense for us to give this up to him. Because we need this balance of power. We need this balance of Canada is separate from the USA and does not need to be forced by the USA to do anything. Calling Trudeau a governor is completely disrespectful. They're not trying to do this to help anyone. They are trying to do this to create power, to be more powerful. You hear me? It's not helping nobody. It's in the long run, they want to be number one state, number one country. They want to be the country that has the most power. And they're just using this right now. Right now, they're just looking at this. It's a time of crisis for Canada, and they're using this opportunity to come up and force it. And then where are they going to go next? That's it. That's all I wanted to say. So.